keep it interesting for you. Well, I'm going to talk about retinal detachment associated with bioretinitis and no financial disclosures. And we all know about acute retinal necrosis, permanent disease, usually seen in immunocompetent young adults. Starts as a changes that we see in the poster segment is we see a lot of vitritis, occlusive arteriolitis, and the periphery associated necrotizing retinitis. And usually we see a retinal detachment within 3 weeks in almost 3/4 of the patients. And secondarily due to the contraction of the dense vitreous causing traction and retinal breaks in the borders of the involved and uninvolved retina. And if you don't treat the patients medically, then there's a very high chance of the progression to involve the posterior retina as well as the other eye getting involved. So the management of ARN basically involves basically we need to control the infection, which is a major problem for all the complications that you see. Restoring the media clarity, prevention of the retinal detachment, and management of its complications, which is mainly retinal detachment. We know the medical management is either intravenous antiviral therapy along with oral and topical steroids. And the role of prophylactic laser here is little difficult to dogmatically say that it's going to help you, because a lot of studies have shown good results with prophylactic laser, but also not great results despite the laser, because you know there's a lot of media opacity in the first few weeks. You can't do laser, and usually you see if you do the laser, there's a possibility that retinal necrosis can progress beyond the laser marks. So this is what I was going to say. And then you have large posterior retinal necrotic breaks developing, and then it's difficult to identify where's a healthy retina and a non-healthy retina. And this is some of the studies which show. One of them shows good results in preventing retinal detachment, whereas the study done by us shows an equivocal result. But still, we would like to, if the media is clear enough and you can identify the areas of retina which is involved, then you go ahead with the laser. Typically, you see large atrophic breaks at junction of normal and inflamed retina. There's significant traction because of the vitreous opacity. There's a retinal scarring. There's vitreous base fibrosis. And sometimes there are subtle areas of active retinitis which you cannot identify, and you see that during surgery itself. So, is there a role for cerebral buckling? Very unlikely, because usually in such cases, if you have to do, they have to have very good media clarity. Only one single quadrant with a very small break in the periphery. So, mostly it is vitrectomy you do, and generally there are large posterior breaks. A lot of vitreous opacities. There is a PVD, however, you don't know where the PVD ends and the retina starts, because the retina is now atrophic, necrotic, thin, and there's a lot of PVR, and there's a continuous inflammation going on in the eye. So the goal of vitrectomy is to remove the vitreous opacity and clean the vitreous traction and the PVR. We can do a lensectomy. Very often we end up doing lensectomy because we need to do good vitreous base shading, because as I said, it leads to there's a lot of severe PVR in the later on, which causes recurrence. The role of enseigning implant is debatable. It's not very useful, may be useful in less extensive retinitis along with a good base excision. So you see the vitreous opacity that you see in the retinitis cases are almost like a dense vitreous hemorrhage that you see. Then identifying the vitreous separate from the retina is going to be difficult. You see, because this is the kind of retina you will see. And then, is it visible? I'm not sure. So you see this kind of retina after you clear the vitreous. And this is the retina which you need to cut, because you can't clean this retina. This is most likely it's like a gland pulls out the retina at the posterior retina and causes a recurrent retinal detachment. And the usual tamponade of choice is going to be long-acting silicone oil, because you know there's a lot of PVR going to later on. There's an exaggerated post-op inflammatory response. You want to look at the retina, so it's best to have a long-term tamponade. And also, retinitis can still progress despite your retinal detachment, so it's important that you be able to see and treat the patient as and when complications arise. Surgical outcome is usually not very good in ARN. It's around 50%, and the functional outcome is usually quite poor because of a lot of post-inflammatory sequelae such as macular pucker, optic atrophy, ectopia due to PVR, and then you also have these long-term PVR changes like traction, rate detachment, processing hypotony, So let's go to CMV retinitis, which we see not very common, but nowadays because of the awareness of HIV and its treatment, we see patients coming to the clinic and being referred to us. So typically here the vitreous is very clear, usually seen in immunocompromised patient with HIV, and nowadays because of good treatment and follow-up with the HARD treatment, we actually see them less. However, retinal detachment does occur in patients because you have clavitics, you have holes in the clavitic scar, synovial vitreous, adding to the combination, there is a vitreous traction also. And you can have breaks in the atrophic retina and then retinal detachment. So the difficult part of identifying the break in CMV retinitis is that there is no contrast. No contrast available, you just see these dark areas. You see these dark areas and anywhere there could be a break. And then slowly you see a retinal detachment developing. The RD may be localized or total, but the earlier you see, the better prognosis for the patient. Medical management, we all know, along with a good HARD treatment. And demarcation laser really has no role in these cases. Squirrel buckle again, as an AR, if the break is peripheral, localized, one quadrant. Vitrectomy is the choice in most cases because it's quite easy now. You can do any kind of gauge and get a good result. Identification of breaks during surgery may be possible if you look for areas of, you just take a flute close to the areas of atrophic retina and you might just be able to get something like this, a Schlieren, which we can say that this is the primary break, probably the site of the onset of RD. And then as I said in ARM, just as in ARM, we have large areas of retina which are completely glatic. So you need to do a good retinectomy to prevent the retina from detaching. That's the posterior pole. Encephalitis here again is nowadays going out of vogue. So we won't advocate that. And typically this is a good case to operate on. You have a CMV retinitis in zone 1, zone 3, quadrant, one single quadrant. You have a thick epiretinal membrane also. PVD has to be used. In this case, usually you won't see a PVD. And important part of PVD is that you need to get it up to the atrophic retina. Because beyond that, you just cannot get it. You can't get a PVD. It's usually very aggressive. And you will invariably cause large breaks. So you don't have to induce PVD beyond the atrophic retina. You can actually cut off the product. Now we are lucky to see a nice break here. You have to really see a Schlieren. So this is an atrophic break, the pre-existing break that you can see. Now PVD, you can just see now. Now as the PVD is getting induced over the posterior pole, the ERM is also going to get lifted off from the fovea. So that's the ERM, thick ERM is pulled off. Now you extend the PVD towards the periphery. And as you can see, this is a 25 gauge vitrectomy, so you can easily get away with the PVD induction and all the other maneuvers that you do with the 20 gauge vitrectomy. Now as you go to the periphery, this is the area where this is supranasal quadrant, this is the area which is involved. And if you try to induce the PVD, as you can just see a break will develop now at the edge of the atrophic and healthy retina. So what else can you do? You can actually do a good vitreous shaving in those areas which you can't, where you can't induce a PVD, and also wherever there are large breaks already present, you just make it a neat, clean break. So good retinectomy in the periphery. Basically, the intention is to free the posterior retina from the peripheral vitreous. And since it is just a single quadrant, you can get away with good vitreous-based shaving also with good scleral depression. So that's what we are doing. We are shaving the vitreous. And this is the iteration break that I was talking about. And then they are cauterizing it. So pre-operative, just after 3 days, the retina looked like this, and later on, the patient had a good recovery of visual acuity. So this is in a good case of one quadrant CMV retinitis peripheral zone. Long-term therapy generally would like to have long-term tapered would like to have silicone oil, and Since most of the patients are already on HART therapy, they are very unlikely that their CD4 counts should come down and have a recurrence of severe retinitis. You can actually remove the oil later on. Natural success in severe retinitis is pretty good. However, functional success is dependent on zone 1 not being there involved, early intervention when the retina is not fully detached, and a healthy optic nerve. Thank you.